Hello again, my friends. Somebody asked me earlier today about the miracle of the multiplication with this sourdough starter. So I've taken the time to put a little gift bag together for her, and I've weighed everything out. So this particular jar here has 253 grams of unfed starter. So that means like this is gonna, airtight lid. It's gonna go in the refrigerator until you're ready to start feeding it. And then when you start feeding it, you'll take some starter out. This one here has 123 grams of unfed starter in here. Now, where did I get this unfed starter? This is actually my discard. So I had over here, I fed this earlier today at about 2:30. So this is my 500 gram of starter, 500 grams of flour, and 500 grams of water. And probably by this evening, it's going to, double or more, and then it'll be ready to make dough with again. Okay, so what was left over from that was 253 grams in this jar, 123 grams in this jar, and an extra 60 grams. So what I did for my friend is I went ahead and fed a starter for her because she's gonna wanna bake pretty soon. So this has 60 grams of starter that I used from my discard whenever I fed mine. I went ahead and put that in here, and I immediately fed it with 60 grams of flour and 60 grams of water, stirred it up with my chopstick really good, and I've got a nice loose fitting lid on there right now. Okay, so we're gonna put that one aside. That, when it rises, probably by this evening, because it's 3:30 now, it'll probably come up to here, or maybe even here, and that will give me enough starter to make approximately 2 loaves of bread. Okay, so this little bit here will go into that flour and water and salt process that I talked about in another video, and this will make approximately 2 loaves of bread. Might not be a total of 180 grams. I'm sorry, a total of 200 grams, because it takes 100 grams to make 100 grams of starter to make a loaf of bread. I can usually get about 200 grams of nice active bubbly starter ready to use out of one of these jars. So we're gonna put that over here. So here's the math on this. Math and science is super fun. I think this is one of the reasons I love baking sourdough bread. So because this one contains a full 253 grams of unfed starter, my friend can take this and can divide it by 60 grams. If you divide 60 into 253, that number is 4.23. So you can get 4 jars of starter. So what I would do is I'd get 4. I would probably use wide mouth mason jars because it's a lot easier to feed your starter with wide mouth, but as long as you've got a 16-ounce jar, that's gonna be okay. You don't wanna use an 8-ounce jar because otherwise it'll be all over your counter and then you'll waste. Okay, so you use a 16-ounce jar, and you're gonna, or 4 16-ounce jars, and you're gonna put 60 grams of starter out of here in each one of them. You'll have a little bit left over that you can wipe out and toss, and because it'll just be a little tiny bit. Then you will add 60 grams of flour to each one of those 4 jars, and 60 grams of water to each one of those jars. That's if you're doing a 1:1:1 ratio. That's what I do. That's what I always do. Some people do 1:3:2, 1:2:3, whatever. I don't know. Personally, I do 1:1:1, and it works great. I have wonderful loaves every single time. So this jar, this was the remainder of the discard from when I fed my starter last. So this has 123 grams. So that divided by 60 will give you roughly about 2 other jars of starter. Okay, so doing the same thing, 60 grams of starter in each jar, 60 grams of flour in each jar, and 60 grams of water. This is if you're wanting to multiply. Okay, let me circle back to the beginning question here. How do I become a crazy baker lady like you, Heidi, and bake a whole bunch of loaves at one time? So You know, I want to bake 12 loaves today. Well, here you go. This is now going to, just these 2 little tiny jars that I have filled with starter, those are going to yield 6 baby jars, or six jars that you can use to now start feeding your starter all the time. So from those 6 jars, you're gonna feed them and, you know, refeed them, but you can make about 12 loaves from 6 jars. So this little bit of starter right here will yield 12 loaves, maybe 10, you know, just depends on how active and bubbly it gets, you know, but at the maximum 12 loaves. That's a lot of bread. That's a lot to share. And oh, by the way, you can take some of that starter. If you don't, let's say you don't make 12 loaves. Let's say you make, you know, 5 loaves or 3 loaves or 2 loaves or 8 loaves or whatever. You can take what's left from that discard. You don't have to discard it, but you can put it in the refrigerator. It's still starter. We call it discard, but it's still starter. You can let it sit in the refrigerator. You can feed it occasionally. Some people say feed it every week. Some people say feed it once a month. You know, I feed mine very, very seldomly when it's in the refrigerator. You just want to make sure that if you start developing hooch on top, that's a whole nother video, that you know, you just either pour it off or mix it in. So, but that's the miracle of multiplication, because you can either keep it for yourself and always make a bunch, or you can give it away. I started with 60 grams and I keep 500, 500, 500. So this is 1,500 grams of starter in there that will double in size. I keep that for my personal baking stuff on my counter. This doesn't ever go in the refrigerator. And I keep some discard in the refrigerator just in case people need it. I gave away 4 cups of discard the other day because a friend of mine was wanting to make a discard recipe, because you can use the discard without having to wake it up and make it active. You can just take the discard right from the refrigerator and put it into a recipe. I made pumpkin sourdough discard scones that were absolutely glorious not too long ago. But you can give it away and let it multiply and continue to spread the love. So that is how we use our starter to multiply. Okay, so when you're keeping your starter on the counter, you should feed it every day if you plan on baking regularly. Sometimes I'll let my starter sit on the counter for a couple of days without feeding it. You know, I was sick one time and I didn't feed it for like an entire week, and I was so afraid that it was dead. And guess what? It wasn't. Woke right back up. I fed it and it was hot and ready to go. So yeah, that's how that works, my friends. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.